is back, baby.
This BruCast episode is brought to you by the BruCast Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BruCast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now bru-cast.com/store. Link below. Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another BruCast episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BruCast is also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where we upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BruCast on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links on the description below. Our guest today is Martin Hristov. How are you doing, Martin?
Hi, Bru. I'm absolutely as blessed as ever, and I'm sure you're feeling as well, and I hope everybody else tuning in to listen to our insightful conversation is feeling the same way.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for being here. Before we continue or do anything else, what do you think about presenting yourself to the audience?
Well, what I think about, I'm happy to offer some ideas, but that's gonna be just a rough idea, because the only way, in my personal opinion, from the experiences I've had and the wisdom I've gathered in life, is the only way to really, I won't say judge a person, but see how a person is to spend time around them and really see if they walk the talk. Because I can say a lot of things here about me, who I am and what's going on, but unless we get to spend time together and you see me in day-to-day circumstances, it's going to be really hard for you to form an opinion or to have an educated opinion. Because why I'm saying this is, nowadays with the influencers online and all these people that live in this online bubble, it's very easy to present a false persona and to pretend to be something that you're not. All right. So hence why I'm saying that. But to give you the short description, and it's kind of loaded, is what I describe as a modern day mystic and Renaissance man.
Whoa.
So yeah, it is short. I've made it as short as possible, but it is a little bit, yes, out there. Yeah, it's loaded.
A mystic, so you practice the mystic arts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not only do I practice, but I live them every day. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Man, I don't know. Well, that's great. So I found your profile on Matchmaker, right? That's how we got to know each other, basically. And I was super interested by it because not only you have this mystic part, but you also told me that you're writing a book. You're a polymath coach. So I don't even know what to start. So let's start with polymath. What does this even mean? I don't know what it means.
Well, there's two sides to it. The way I like to look at it is from as I mentioned, a modern Renaissance man, somebody who is skilled in many different, what would appear unrelated fields of science or arts or crafts or understanding. So somebody who's multi-gifted, but not because he was born this way, but because it was developed over time through curiosity, through engagement with different activities and hobbies and pursuits and passions. Because the general term of the polymath is more of somebody like academically knowledgeable about various different subjects and topics of science. I would say scientific, but more like academic studies, which is just means that they know a lot about things, but that's one thing, right? It's a whole different story if they walk the talk or they actually practice this and they can apply it in their life and obviously create desirable results using what they know.
Perfect. That's the opposite of being a couch potato, not achieving anything of your life, was just wasting your potential. So it's basically the opposite of that. That's amazing. So, what inspired you? What motivated you to pursue and achieve this lifestyle?
Honestly, I think that fundamentally looking, when I get when I'm a guest on a podcast, or even when I was been lately focusing on writing my origin story, my Batman origin story, so to speak, like what led me to who I am today, and like to pursue the life that I've been living and develop this lifestyle and this very unorthodox approach to life is fundamentally at the base was always the desire to figure out from an early childhood something that never died in me, or I never suppressed, or it was that never withered away, was my desire to figure out really life. What was life all about? And like, what was the purpose of this game called life? Like, I never gave up on this question to figure out. And the way I pursued it, because I grew up in a very different environment, just like you did. I know you're from Brazil, I'm from Bulgaria, and I moved to the US when just after graduating high school, so in my like mid 90s. But I grew up in Bulgaria in a first it was communism, and then post socialism, early democracy type of political and social structure, which was very unique in its own sense. Because the only way to describe it is probably if you would used to live in Eastern Germany, and you were a little kid when the wall fell, and you are now exposed to the Western world, or have all these freedoms that before was taken away. So we had this great amount of freedom as children growing up, and very little adult supervision. The term for this is called a latchkey kid, meaning like your parents give you the key for the house and kind of like leave you on your own kind of terms to take care of yourself during the day, to go and do your homework, or eat, or whatever the hell it is. You can hang out all day, or you can stay at home, or you know just have plenty of freedom and little adult supervision. So me and my buddies used to do everything. And when I say my buddies, we were like 6 7 years old, right, growing up in my neighborhood, in this like what I would call like a wild west form of early democracy on the Balkans. Right, so me and my buddies used to go to the local gambling hall, gamble, smoke cigarettes, hang out with the grown-ups, drink alcohol, and do everything that the grown-ups were doing at the time. And as you can imagine, coming from this type of world, you get to taste and experience things that in other Western cultures and so on, the young people, generally speaking, are required to reach certain age to have access to. But where my friends, when we were had like unlimited access to those things, as long as we had the money to pay for what we wanted from very early childhood. So to get back to where I was, to my origin and what has led me to pursue this path, was always trying to figure out what really makes someone feel lastingly fulfilled, or satisfied, or happy, or like something that really, it's not a fainting moment of happiness or satisfaction, but it's like this very deeply rooted sense of contentment and fulfillment, and just feeling that you know everything is okay the way it is. You don't want more, you don't want less, you're totally okay to be where you at without having to pursue anything more, or to engage with something else. Just to like, that's been my driving thing, to figure out what this life was all about, and how to create a life, or what it is in life that gives you that lasting feeling of like really meaningful and deep satisfaction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know you're serious about it because of the way we speak. It is so full of passion. It's contagiating. Like it's you can feel it. And man, I didn't know Bulgaria was a communist country. I
Oh
had
yeah, for
had
a long
no idea. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, for a long time. I was lucky that I only lived in communism for about 5 years. But prior to that, I think after the Second World War, we were behind what the Cold Curtain, or whatever they called it, for maybe 50 years or so. So yeah, it was, or about 40 years or so, we had our own kind of like authoritarian dictator and that kind of stuff. So it was very similar to the rest of like what Eastern Europe would have had at the time, Poland and Hungary and all these, and Romania and so on and so on.
Wow. Wow, must have been tough. You know, I had a guest the other day on the podcast, Daniel Hauga. He's a life coach now. No, sorry, not a life coach, but he's preaching. He's really trying to help people not waste their potential, achieve a life worth living. So and something that he mentioned while he was explaining his background was that he had a tough childhood as well, and I think he was in a circle once with a group of friends, and they were like, he was around, I think 12 or something. I'm just guessing, something like very young, and he was already smoking, gambling, like doing all those, like having sex as a kid. And I think one of his colleagues asked, "So Daniel, how old do you think you're gonna die?" You know, like they're just guessing around, like, and he said, "I don't know, 15. I know I'm past 15." And then when he said that, everyone's like, "What the fuck, bro?" Are you serious? That's not serious. He was like, "Yeah, I'm serious." And then he started asking himself, "Am I serious about that? Why I think I'm gonna die at 15?" Because his life was so hard, right? Something clicked on him, and he decided to completely change his life, like start exercising, start going like eating well, and also helping other people. And that's very interesting. So something that I'm starting to notice, Martin, with the podcast, is that the people who go through the hardest in life, they always come, not everyone, but those who come around, they always want to help other people to not go through the same thing, to have a better life. Would you agree with that? I think makes sense.
Well, this expression I heard before from somebody that it's people that have suffered turn their challenges that they overcome into a business, and then they help others to overcome them. Because here's the thing: the reality is such that once you have a deep enough understanding of what life is all about, and I don't mean just on the surface level from scientific perspective, but as a mystic, as somebody who goes on beyond the veil of the senses, and you can study things from a different dimension. You see that the human condition is always the same. The challenges of all human beings have always been the same. We can change our toys, meaning our technology and environment and that kind of stuff, but the challenges that all human beings throughout the existence of humans on this planet have always been the same. So the suffering is always the same. The challenges are always the same. Nothing really changes. Only the content in our environment changes. Meaning, the culture, the values, and all these type of things, or the interests, or the toys we have, and the conveniences. But generally speaking, the human condition remains the same. It doesn't matter if you are a disciple of Buddha 2,000, 2,500 years ago somewhere in India or the Himalayas, or you're some Christian today, or whatever the hell it is, right? And not to take sides or anything, just it's always the same. The human condition remains the same, right?
Yes.
So hence the ones, and there are always challenges. That's life is designed to be this way. If there's one great idea I want to leave you today, is that life is designed to be this way. Life is not a survival expedition, so to speak. If I was to put it this way, it's rather a school. We are an earth school here, and as if anybody has been to any form of schooling, of formalized form of schooling, whether you're elementary school, mid school, high school, or you even university, you can expect that every time you graduate a grade or you move to the next grade, things get harder. The tests get harder. So life is designed to be this way, because there is a dimension beyond the space here called planet Earth, where we go when we graduate from Earth school. So in order to graduate from Earth school, inevitably you'll have to face a lot of tests, and the further away you go, in your progression, in your realization, in your growth as a soul, having a human experience, because that's what we are in our essence, the harder the challenges get. And you can see this, or you can find evidence for that throughout the human history. When you look at the lives of any saint or anybody who's really whose life we can look back and with admiration and study, their lives were never easy. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But easy from the context and perspective of a normal human being. And what I mean by this normal human being is a human being who haven't yet developed their resilience and their emotional maturity. Somebody who can sit with the discomfort, who can embrace pain and discomfort, who can work from that place, who can live from that place and not always look for conveniences and comforts and distractions and ways to numb out, but is happy to make themselves uncomfortable because they know that this is something that needs to be done in order to graduate and move on to what I like to refer as to galactic college, from art school to the galactic college, because that's what we go after here if we have done the work and we are so to speak reach a point where we can be entrusted with greater responsibility. Because as you can see, even here, by based on the history over the, at least the written history that we have on record, that we can look back in and make conclusions of, or extract valuable lessons. Human beings tends to be, although humans have great goodness in them, they're easily triggered in negative ways, and convinced to do very cruel things to each other, and not just each other, but all the God's children here on the planet.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I was at school, my teachers and the director of school used to say,
But
Let
don't, yeah.
let's say it's SAT. I remember
Yeah.
he said he used to come every week to the classroom and say, guys, the SAT will be the hardest, the most difficult challenge in your entire life. So study for it, and after that, life will be so easy. You don't need to worry about anything else. That's the biggest mountain that you need to climb in your life. And I bought that crap. I was like, yeah, that's the time that I need to put effort, and everything will be easy after. Dude, how could I believe so much BS?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure life demonstrated something different, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Every year it just gets harder and harder. And you said it has been designed that way. And this is a galactic school. So, do you believe in afterlife?
I don't believe in it. I know it's there. It's to believe is to requires you to trust is something that you have no evidence for. I have evidence for things beyond what the senses can perceive. So I don't believe in afterlife. I know I've lived many lives before, and I know there are many lives for me to live, and not just me, but everybody else. There is none, because at the essence of who we are, we're not living beings. We're something way beyond. The simplest way to describe it to a modern human being with the terms that we have, because you see, unless we spoke Sanskrit, which is the ancient Hindu language, which is very rich in terms that relate to spiritual, other dimensional terms and descriptions, Western languages are very poor of that, because our science doesn't deal with the metaphysical. Our science deal with the physical, and that's where it ends. So we don't have terms to describe things beyond the physical, which we cannot measure or the senses can perceive, but are as real as anything, or are the birthing ground and what gives solidity and birth to everything that we perceive through the senses, which in science and philosophy is referred to as phenomena. Everything on this plane of existence that we see, feel, touch, taste, smell, and so on, or we can measure through scientific instruments is referred to as phenomena, or in other words, it's an effect of a cause, which is referred to as noumena, or the world from or metaphysical world where these things first are born and come forward from. But we don't have in our sensibilities as human beings and our science yet lacks the ability to measure or in some way somehow perceive these greater truths and energies and much much finer dimensions of reality, but they're very much there. And what we are, to come back on what I wanted to present, not as an idea but as an experiential fact that you can experience within yourself through certain advanced practices, is that the simplest way to call it is consciousness. This ability within you to perceive that you exist at all times, to feel through the senses, to make sense of the world, to see that you exist as a separate little bubble outside of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And for this, you don't need to sense things. What I mean, you don't have to have input from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I was to shut off all your senses, you can still sit and feel and know that you exist. And what I mean by this is not by sitting and creating mental processes and voices in your head, but just there's this very deeply rooted sense of being that is beyond any scientific perception, right? And I can have zero. I think where we're lacking right now, what we're lacking in scientific terms, is scientific research on the brain activity when advanced meditators and mystics and so on gets in those deeper states, because what they're capable of doing, and this is like verified fact, is they can literally stop their heartbeats for long periods of time and not breathe, and go literally disconnect from this physical world and connect to a different world and exist on kind of like suspended in space without breathing, having heartbeat or anything like that, and then come back. There's very little research done into that, but it's a very, like, the more you progress, and what I mean progressing, developing in that dimension, the more you can start to experience those states within you, and the more you can, the moment you disconnect from the five senses is the moment you connect to that different reality. Because the only reason why you think this is reality is because you constantly fed this data input from the outside world. The moment you can turn it off intentionally in your own ways, you start to see that there's something behind this world. Because we experience the outside world through the humanly body. But this is just a leased vehicle for a limited period of time. And eventually everybody turns back the keys and lives in here, and then eventually gets a new one. A more upgraded model, so to speak.
There's a phrase that I heard several times throughout my life from several different people online, is that we're just physical manifestations of a spiritual being, something like that. I think that's what you're referring to, right?
Well, there's the physical dimension.
Yeah.
There's an energetic dimension, and then there is the causal or idea dimension. There are few planes of manifestation that lead to the final condensation in physical form. You can to use a simple analogy to put it into a way that everybody can grasp their head, is water is the best example of that, and hence why even water is the one I won't say chemical, but definitely the simplest way to put it is so essential to life. Like on our planet, water is the only object that can stay in through can occupy three different forms, or in three different states. Yes, states of its the matter composition, right? So hence water is a great analogy of those. So water, let's say if the causal plane is like water, steam or vapor, and the energetic plane or the astral plane, which is in between, is like liquid water. Our bodies are like ice.
Got it. Okay. So sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
So it's a condensation, a very, very fine energy that first begin as a thought, and what I mean, not a human thought, but the way advanced thought than ours. But because thought is a thing. Eventually there will come ages, and what I mean ages, probably, I don't know how long it's gonna take, but it'll come ages when people will no longer utter sounds to communicate. We'll be able to directly, telepathically read our thoughts and communicate directly through thought, because thought is a very real thing. So, point being though, it all begins at a thought level or a causal level. Then there is a dimension which it precipitates or condensates into a much denser energy, and this energy is semi-intelligent. The semi-intelligent energy is directed from that thought, because that thought is a willing thought. Just like our minds, we can will to do things. Using that energy, we direct it, or it's being directed, and finally condenses like ice into these physical bodies, or not just human physical bodies. Everything pretty much within the universe is designed in the same way. That is not designed by human beings. What I mean is not manufactured in a factory, no craftsman or somebody made it out of their hands by modifying already concrete gross matter. But even if you think about it, it always begins as a thought. No human invention that we now take for granted ever first began as a physical object, right? It was always an idea in somebody's head, though finally was brought to manifestation in a physical form of some nature.
Yeah, but everything begins within you, in your conscious. Gosh, I want to believe this. So, Martin, that's a lot of knowledge that you're transmitting us right now. How the thing is, let me formulate my question. How have you been transmitted those informations, or how did you achieve this knowledge? Like, where did you got it from? From meditating? Some book?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of books you can read on things, right? There's a lot of interesting metaphysical and esoteric books. I've studied esoteric philosophies and things that is not mainstream for many years, but fundamentally, in order to confirm things, the only place you can do is within you, with your intuition. Once it's developed, and you can test things for yourself. And because I don't ask you to believe, all I want to do today is just to inspire you all to seek that true within you, to develop this ability that you can pierce beyond the veil, so you can start living from that place. Because it's one thing to believe, it's a whole different story to know, because you have evidence. And again, like, meditation is the method you go, or like, and when I say meditations, there are different forms of meditations, and they all deliver different results, or used for different purposes. Oh yeah, absolutely.
What? So I know the one you just focus on your breathing. I know the one you focus on sound. I know the one you focus on your body movements. So is this even valid? What are the different types of meditation?
Well, they're all valid. Again, they just produce different results. It's what kind of result you're after, right? There are various goals. One is, again, like I personally started with a meditation that was taught by Gautama the Buddha, or the man who is generally known as the Buddha in in our world that is referred to as vipassana meditation, or has to do with observing sensations within the body and scanning things and basically developing the ability to be present in the moment, and also to understand, not just mentally but through your experience, that everything is constantly changing, that there is no permanence in this reality, that everything just arises and then disappears, arises and then disappears. So you kind of in a way develop a non-attachment to the physical realm, and you just enjoy it as a movie on the screen, so to speak, something that is presented to your senses, but it's constantly oscillating, it's constantly changing, it's constantly varying, and it gives you it's a great, again, don't get me wrong, it's an absolutely powerful, and I in my opinion, as somebody who's way more advanced than that, and not because I want to, oh, look at me, you know, I'm not a guru or none of those fucking things. It's just I've been practicing different modalities, but it's a very powerful modality for you to develop your own sense of awareness, so you can fine tune your being, because you're the expert of your own experience. Only you live in your body, so only you know
Yeah.
its particular kinks and so on and so on. I don't know what it feels to be in your body, and I don't want to know. I already have minds to deal with, right?
Well, thank you for that.
But point being, you know, the more fine-tuned and refined this level of self-awareness is, the more you can fine-tune everything about your life and lifestyle, whether it's your diet, whether it's the way you sleep, the way you're breathing, all of these things, because the more awareness you can bring to any moment, the more you know how are you behaving, thinking, feeling, speaking, and so on, and the more you can change yourself, the more
Yes.
you can transform, and the more you can introduce new ways of being that, let's put it this way, perhaps are more effective at satisfying you and giving you a much richer and harmonious life. But there are other modalities that are way more advanced, that train you to do other things, that are training you to actually, as I mentioned earlier, to disconnect from this physical world by switching off the senses and turning your energy around, instead of pouring outside of your senses, going within and going backwards to where it comes from, to the source of it all. So you can kind of like, instead of being pulled and buying into this world as the ultimate reality, you can kind of like turn around, and to use a simple analogy, if you're in a theater, and what I mean like a movie theater, and you're looking at the movie on the screen, if you turn around, you're going to see a beam of light at the wall projecting it on the screen. So instead of looking at the big projection on the wall where all the actors are having their moments and blah blah blah, you look at the screen or at the beam, and you start traveling backwards to the beam where the light comes from. So there are
Yeah.
different modalities. Meditation is very powerful and extremely, I highly recommend any form of meditation you start just to build the practice of meditating daily would be a great win. It doesn't matter what form it is, as long as you're, even that could be useful to meditate on checks, you know, to sit at home and meditate on checks, so you don't have to do anything and money pours into your life. That could be useful too, but generally speaking, you know, you have to initiate things. I'm saying this facetiously as a joke, but point being, you know, any ability or constant habit you can develop to meditate from, at least I would say, 15 minutes a day. Obviously you're going to start smaller, 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on, will be a great win and benefit to your life. So there are many modalities. It's just they're not all created equal, so to speak.
How minutes per day do you meditate?
Well, honestly, when I'm in a rush, and that's rare, I would say it's hard to measure, but perhaps an hour at least. When I have, I would say more time, but generally speaking, it's easy for me to meditate for 2, 3 hours without any effort.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Damn.
Well, again, it comes down to what are you seeking in life, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you're seeking something that'll not only bring you uh, eternal state of peace and security and solidity and just the calmness and contentment, you can go out there. I mean, go out there and enjoy the real world. Go and enjoy it. But
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to find anything like that out there because it doesn't exist out there. It exists within.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I like to describe it is I use a very simple analogy. It's like when they had the gold rush back then here in California about 150 years ago, when all these immigrants from all over the world came, right? And they were all looking for gold and prospecting for gold throughout rivers and stuff. Well, when you find the gold,
People, they look for validation or prize, like all of those things, fame, any type of success, or anything externally that they think will bring them peace and achievement and a sense of fulfillment. And it's not. It's like it can bring you some short periods, intense amounts of happiness, but at the end of the day, you can only achieve fulfillment like inside. It's inside of you. If you're not happy in Germany, you will not be happy in the US, you will not be happy in Japan. Like the your sadness follow you wherever you go. You need to do the inner work. You need to, otherwise it will follow you. So I resonate with what you're saying.
yeah,
Um,
well, you're the you, and I'm not just saying you, just you, Brew, but when I say you, everybody listening, you are the common denominator in your life.
yeah,
So you take yourself wherever you go.
yeah,
You are the only common denominator at all times. So if something's off, the place to look in is here. It's not somewhere out there, And then you don't have to fix the world. Once you fix your own wiring, the world will fix itself.
yeah,
It's the other way around that creates all this disharmony and chaos and suffering in the world, where people are trying to fix the world because they think they know how it should be. Well, you can't. I have news for everybody. The world would never be fixed because it's not designed to be this way. It's always designed to have this tug of wars. One side pulls, the other one pushes. It's designed to revolve between duality, from one extreme to the other. And it's always going to be like that. It's always going to be paradoxes. There's always going to be friction. It's part of the rule set that gives birth to this world. It has to revolve between these. Or in other words, in simple terms, if we are to take a loaf of bread, right? No matter how thin we slice each slice or each piece of bread, there's always going to be two sides to it.
mm-hmm.
We can go microscopically thin, and there's still going to be side A and side B. It's just unavoidable. It's how this universe is designed to be. So, point being, you can definitely engage with all these activities to learn for yourself, because the only way you can figure it out, that you're not going to find out there all these things, is to engage with the world. Because I used to do the same thing. I mean, nobody figures this out like just being born into it, so to speak, unless you've done a lot of work in previous lifetimes that have given you a level of advancement that you're, let's put it this way, again, using simple metaphor, you're just before graduating from Earth school. So you just came back for one more little class so you can finish your SAT and go on to Galactic College. Otherwise, you have to bang your head against the wall to figure it out, so to speak, because that's just how the Earth School is designed to be, right? I can share with you a lot of ideas here, and not just ideas, but truth. But in order to validate them for yourself, you have to do a certain type of effort and work that doesn't produce results overnight. Like anything else in this world, anything else worthwhile or meaningful that you pursue doesn't happen overnight. You can see these overnight wonders on Instagram and say everybody's like all of a sudden have succeeded, but that's not how things came to be, right? We
Yeah.
all know that no human being is born overnight. It takes 9 months just for a baby to be to be cooked up in a mom in a woman's womb. So hence with everything else, you have to put the time, but nobody's willing to put the time. Generally speaking, most people are just engaged with the world, expecting to find it out there and out there. And obviously, our society is not structured to encourage that inner search for meaning and truth and fulfillment. It's designed to be always drawing us outwards to go and seek to catch the shadows on the wall, basically, because that's all it is. You're trying to catch shadows on the wall. If like I was trying to catch my shadow here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. When you're talking about the two sides of the bread and the duality of this planet, and I couldn't stop thinking about the yin yang, right? The black and white, the day and night, and that's something that our society did not came up with the concept of yin yang. As far as I know, the Chinese came up with it thousands of years ago, which means like this is not something new. Like it's really part of the universe and part of life, and that's not the only thing. Like a lot of archaeologists and historians, especially Graham Hancock. I really like his work. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work. He says that humanity, we are a species with amnesia. Like there's so many ancient knowledge that we just decide to ignore. Yin Yang, like basically a lot of those things that we're talking right now, like the ancient civilizations, they believe it, right? The Egyptians, I mean, for them, it was a certain there is life after death. That's even why they used to mummify the dead. So it's crazy to think that nowadays this is like mystic. It's esoteric because it was many years ago. It was just the truth. Yeah.
Well, nowadays we have a few religions that are definitely not serving us, and what I refer to as again, like I call it a religion because nobody challenges its foundation is science. Because science, as it is nowadays, most of it is just speculation. But none of the scientists are telling you this. It's not based on facts. Most of the fundamental theories, they're just theories. The fact that they haven't been proven to be wrong yet, that doesn't mean they're true,
No.
right?
I need to stop you for a second. 1 second. Science is the opposite of it. Science is about facts, right? It's about
Well, science is about facts. Facts based on what? Speculation.
they run tests as far as you know. Whenever you want to prove something on science, you need to run a test and run a test again and again, and in order to achieve the same result. And I mean, is that's not
Yeah, well,
speculation, right?
there's one part you cannot take out of the test, though. It's the observer of the tests and
Mm-hmm.
placebo effect and their influence and their conscious influence over the effect. You see, although this is a very complex, I won't say complex, but very deep thought that I'm going to share with you, everybody, right now. The placebo effect is something that's been studied for many years, and hence why it's part of every medical study when it comes down to big pharma having to release here, at least in the US. I don't know what the rules and regulations of whatever regulatory bodies exist in Europe when it comes down to pharmaceutical drugs that are sold by prescription and so on. But here in the US, you have to run a double-blind studies, controlled studies that are verifiable and so on. And there are always 3 groups in them, or sometimes more, but generally speaking, they have to have 3 groups. One is the one that takes the actual prescription drugs that they're developing to prove that it's actually producing results. The other one is the control group, which doesn't take anything. And the third one is the placebo group. They give them a sugar pill or maybe a vitamin C, doesn't matter, something that's not going to hurt them, and they're being told that they're taking the same drug. And then they measure the difference between, to calculate if the actual drug is more powerful, producing higher benefit than not taking it whatsoever, or just believing that you're taking something or whatever you're taking is going to produce this result for you. And from my studies and my understanding, I haven't looked at the law because they change the regulations from time to time. The actual drug, the pharmaceutical drug being tested, needs to outperform placebo with 3% to be deemed viable to be sold to the public, or to be deemed worthwhile of bringing to the market, because actually it's producing result, which tells you that for the most part placebo is 97% effective, or the placebo is the driving force behind everything. And there's a lot of studies done from scientists on that plane, is even when it comes down to surgeries, physical surgeries. They haven't gone deep onto that because it's going to disrupt the whole medical science when it comes down to surgery, what they call sham surgeries. They tell somebody that they give them the heavy anesthetic, so they go to sleep. They tell them they had this surgery performed on them, whatever the surgery was supposed to do, and they cut them somewhere just to show them that, for them to think, because they were deeply unconscious, that to think that they performed the surgery on them. They never do, and the results are the same as if they actually got a surgery.
No,
so why I'm saying this,
isn't this illegal? If you're paying for a
Well-
surgery, you should get a surgery. Are they allowed to do
Well,
that in the
hence-
US? Yes.
then hence why they haven't done more studies on it,
I
right?
see.
But there has been controlled studies done on that. Although, again, the legalities of this, point being that the placebo or the observer and their belief of what is going to show up as a result influences the outcome of any scientific test. I can guarantee you that, hands down. Just by the way they structured the tests and the beliefs they have, and so on and so on, it has to play with what the results are. And why I'm saying this is that, again, they can test a lot of things. We can test a lot of things in tubes and this and that, but the world is not a tube, is it?
No.
Right? We can test a lot of things in tubes and so on, but the world is not a tube. It's a whole ecosystem that interacts with each other, with itself on so many different planes and ecosystems and some symbiotic ways that it's beyond the way of science. Why I'm saying, to get back to the point that science is a religion, is that nobody questions the speculations in science. Because there's a lot of things that are not confirmed by factual data. They're confirmed by some inferences or deductions, but they're not yet unfailable or infallible. In the final results are not infallible. Hence what you said, the wisdom, the insight, the real knowledge has been always there. We just are programmed as a society not to look at all the wisdom that other societies prior to ours have had and has been passed along for generations and generations. We are just conditioned to buy into only what science tells us is actually true. And most of it is not. Most scientists are actually too scared. If you watch some documentaries just on the topic of climate change, you're going to see a lot of, and I'm talking about Nobel laureate scientists saying that they were cowards back in the day to speak about the truth of their findings. Scientific findings in many ways are steered, directed, or tainted by corporate interest and greed. So things that disrupt and are no good for business, things as they are not really presented to the public. They're hidden away, or in some way, some form, a great amount of effort is made to show that actually the findings of this scientific study were actually done in, or the study was performed in a poor way, so the results are not reliable, right? They're tainted in some way, so we shouldn't take them seriously. Because most of academia and most of science is sponsored by corporate bodies. And these corporate bodies, nothing against them, but their first rule of business is profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want things disrupted. They want business to go as usual. Whatever is good for business flies. Whatever is showing that our business maybe is not the most positive for humans and the planet and so on. Oh, this we can bury it somewhere, and don't worry, the scientists will keep shut, and they do most of the time. So what you see in science is very questionable nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Whew. Man, Big Farm is coming after you, man. You better lock up your door. But I agree.
That's all right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Pharma is just one aspect, right? There's other dimensions to that, but big pharma, when you think about it, they're all connected. Big pharma is part of the petrochemical industry, because most pharma is made out of petrol anyways. So they're interconnected tentacles to the same fundamental industries that have been around for the last 1 century or so on. They look like they're different, but they're part of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Going back to the surgery and the placebo effect that the brain. Okay, I'm sorry for the drop.
No worries.
So what I was saying was how powerful the brain is, basically, and I think it ties up a little bit to what we were talking about in the beginning, about conscientiousness. How do you pronounce this? Consciousness. Exactly.
Yes.
It permeates life on this planet, and that's something that I think often is like, there's life on planet Earth. We as human beings, what are we like? That's the question that you brought up in the beginning. Like, what is life? What are we doing here? And like, the way I see it's like, we're not different from any other animal on this planet Earth. We're just consciousness evolving and trying to survive and evolve even more. That's all. That's the same thing that the antelope's doing, the ants doing. They just manifest differently because they evolved in a different environment. The reason why birds fly and penguins don't is like because they evolved in different environments, but they are just the universe and the conscious of the universe trying to move forward. I don't know if any of this makes sense, but
Absolutely.
that's something that I also ask myself from time to time. It's like, what is life? What are we? Is consciousness like being generated by a computer in the fourth dimension, and that's what making life happen. I don't know. I don't know. So my question would be: do you believe in different dimensions and beings in fourth, fifth dimensions? Are those things real? Are
Oh,
aliens real?
yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing
Yeah.
again. I don't use the word belief. I have
Okay.
evidence for things,
Okay.
right? Through direct experience, not because I read somebody and I have to believe. So I can tell you that there are much higher dimensions than this here, because as I described using these very simple analogies, this here is the dimension of frozen ice, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah.
But there are other dimensions where this energy that is frozen as solid gross matter here is actually much, much freer, and it's kind of in the shape of water, so to speak, to use this analogy again.
Yeah.
Or maybe as a form of steam, but it's not as concrete, concrete and settled in its forms and shapes. And it's very different. It's absolutely beautiful and stunning when you have the ability to perceive in those dimensions once you've developed to a certain degree. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Are aliens beings from those other dimensions visiting us?
Well, I don't think they're visiting us. They're among us all the time. They're different energies, but obviously they're in a sense like this is here's the thing. Space and time as a concept, because it's just a concept, mental concept, only exists in the physical realm. Because you need to know that you're over there and I'm here in order to establish relevance between me and you, like further or closer apart, lower or higher in altitude, and so on and so on. In the other dimensions, those things do not exist. There is no space and time. There, everything is kind of almost immediate. And for example, our science, or part of it, that is still very in its kind of like initial stage, quantum physics and quantum mechanics proves that everything is entangled, meaning that you can have a particle at the other end of the universe, God knows how far away it is, and another one at the other end, and they're simultaneously in each and every moment knows what everybody's kind of thinking, so to speak, to use simple terms. So if that particle on the other end of the universe was decided that to be red, the other one knows automatically, so it chooses to be blue. So there is no time and space. It only exists here. These beings, entities, or you can call it containers of consciousness. That's what I like to look at them as. They're conscious beings, but they're not physical beings. They're energetic beings. They're beings of energy and consciousness. And they're among us. We just don't have the ability to perceive them. They don't visit us. They're here all the time. Ancient cultures, whether it's Native Americans or tribes and so on, they have all these, even like the northern tribes, the Vikings and so on, about gnomes and different forest spiritual creatures and so on and so on. There's always, they knew that there are spirits around them, and that's what these spirits are. And they're just different dimensional beings that are here all the time, but it just, our senses are so poor at showing us beyond what is here on this dimension that we don't perceive them, but they're here all the time. They don't really, in my experience, they don't really interact with us in the sense that you would, or try to do anything to us. They're just being there because they're just wandering around for their own reasons, whatever data they're collecting. That's the way I see it, and from the perspective of the consciousness that's within me, that's within everybody, and every single animal and every single atom for that matter, because every atom is conscious. There is no matter that is not conscious. It's conscious at a different degree. And on our planet, as far as we know, because we don't know for sure, right? how conscious a whale is, or a dolphin, or a parrot, or some other animals that are extremely intelligent and demonstrate quite advanced skills and abilities and communication and so on. We just can, from our limited perspective, we think we are the most conscious of all the animals, or the container that can carry the most consciousness, because we're self-conscious of ourselves. We can exercise rationale, we can have will, we can have discipline, and all these things. So point being, there's different containers for consciousness, and every single granular molecule has consciousness within it. It just, versus relative to the consciousness that we can exercise or possess, is very different, right? It would look like, almost like if you were to compare a rock to a frog, because they both vibrate, the molecules in them vibrate, so they're alive in some way. And they have preferences, right? There are these molecules within them, electrons and positrons and blah, 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 all these different elements that already have what, like, if you were to examine a flower, how does a flower know where is the sun? So it rotates and points at it. And when it gets dark, to close off and kind of protect itself for the night. Now, this is a form of consciousness. It just, versus minds, is a little less. And that same consciousness that is in the flower, you can gradually imagine, or so to speak, go down the rabbit hole, or in a, like, zoom out of the picture, or zoom in microscopically and see that every single cell carries a degree of consciousness itself, and every little molecule or atom or particle that makes that cell has its own degree of consciousness, and so on and so on. So there's consciousness throughout the universe. There's different just containers, and it's organized in different forms.
Yeah, yeah, and going back again to the ancient civilizations and the people from the past, like the Japanese, they have a whole religion around that, the Shintoism. Shintoism, as far as I know, I don't practice, is basically you believe that everything around you has consciousness. The rock, the tree, every single element from nature is alive. Everything's alive, and it's funny to see. You can see like references on that from that on several animations from Miyazaki, who's great. Like you always see, like I think on Princess Mononoke, you have like all the nature spirits. I mean, all the fans, they know what I'm talking about. But yeah, the Japanese, they knew about that a long time ago. It's nothing new. Like consciousness is everywhere, permeates everything. Like, oh man, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Star Wars. They say the same on Star Wars. Star Wars again. It's a it's a mix of. All right, hi Martin. So sorry everyone, we are having some connection issues right now, but don't you worry. You're watching the edit version. I already fixed everything, so you're lucky. But anyway, let's move forward. You're writing a book, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, well, the working title of the book right now, because I've expanded upon what I wrote before, and I've been dabbling around with, or thinking about what would be the best simple title to represent what the book is all about. And the best I've come up to this point is Life PhD. So basically, if you read my book, you're gonna be a PhD in how to live life and what is life all about, because that's the one thing they don't teach you in school, and it's not part of the program, right? They have PhDs in medicine and whatever science, or any kind of like you can be a doctor in many things, but I guess I made it my life's mission to become a doctor alive, to figure out what life was all about and how to live it. So now I've come up to the point where I understand human psychology. And what I mean psychology is the human condition, the sufferings, the challenges, and so on of a human being. And my book, because I'm a man and I only lived in this body can relate 100% to another man, because I know what it is to be a man, in a sense of how it feels, the physiology, the psychology, and so on. So my book is written specifically for men who want to create a beautiful life in the second half of their life. Because young men, generally speaking, nowadays, although we, obviously everybody's curious and so on, are pulled in many directions. They're still experimenting with a lot of different things, and this and this and this and that. And obviously, as our conversation earlier, in order for you to gain some degree of understanding and wisdom and knowledge in this world, you have to experience and try a lot of things and kind of like hurt yourself in many ways and dabble with a lot of things and walk many paths in order to understand what are the things in life that are meaningful, or to discover that what society has conditioned you to buy into is really lacks all the meaning, fulfillment, and anything worthwhile pursuing. And my book is all about that. It's all about how to create a meaningful life with lasting fulfillment and enjoy a peak level of well-being. So you can enjoy each and every moment of each and every day and strive towards something really meaningful and worthwhile. So the rest of your time on earth, whatever you choose to do with it, will be spent pursuing something that's going to be an asset to you for lifetimes to come. But that's, obviously you'll have to read the book to discover all the insights there and gain your own life PhD, right? Because it's your life. I can give you the tools and directions, but then you'll have to become the PhD in your own life, because it's your own life. And every life is unique and every path is unique. There are patterns, there are commonalities. We're all human beings. We all sleep, breathe, eat, and shit, right? And copulate, but then how we choose to do these things and so on is very individual. And that's where the beauty of life is. It's like a piece of art in a museum. You can see paintings that are influenced by each other, by different painters, but they're never the same. The theme would be the same, and they may be a century apart, but you can see that one guy's picture is very different from the other guy's picture. So, point being, this is what the book is all about. And it's all about empowering, inspiring, and uplifting everybody, and not just for their own self-centered dimension on an egoistic level, but how you can become a role model that uplifts everybody in your neighborhood, in your town, in your city, how you can be a vehicle or engine of positive change. And what I mean by positive change is is the word harmony. How can you contribute to greater harmony in this world? Because if we take music as an analogy, right? If we playing chords that are in harmony, there's a beautiful melody. The moment we start playing these discordant chords, it's almost like somebody's punching you in the gut when they're this chaotic. And they use them in horror movies for a reason. They make the hair on your back stand up, so to speak, right? So how can you become an engine or an instrument of harmony? So that's really what the main picture behind the book is. You, by becoming and having the knowledge necessary that I've distilled and I've collected for many years, that comes from ancient studies and just, all the wisdom philosophies and sciences and so on throughout human history that we can examine, put into practice, validate in scientific methods, so to speak, because that's what I do. I don't talk the talk, I walk the talk, right? I find these insights and wisdoms and so on, and I put them into practice. I devise some scientific way to see if they will produce results into my life. And if I validated them, they do produce results, and those results are repeatable and universal, then I present them as ideas to everybody. And my book is all about that. And it's going to be an absolutely amazing book once it's finished. And strongly encourage everybody to familiarize themselves with my work and start following my website, which is Martin, MartinHristov.com. Just bookmark my page and start looking at it. I also have recently started a new YouTube channel, so very soon I'll be creating and posting a lot of videos that share in a video format some of the main ideas and topics in the book in a lot more concise way. Obviously, it's very, but it's gonna be a beautiful adventure and hero journey that I can take you with along the way, because I'm also working on a lot of things personally myself. As am I doing this work. I'm always a work in progress. Let's put it this way. If you are speaking to anyone on this plane, they haven't graduated yet, which means they still have work to do. And no matter what, we're still in the same school, so to speak. So we can always help each other. And you know,
Mm-hmm. Do you? So that's your first book, or?
I have a first book which I wrote that I didn't officially publish. I just give it as a free gift to all
Come
my
on.
to all my clients and people I meet in person. You can actually download it for free on my website. It's just digitally released, and it's offered as a free gift. But part of the knowledge and the wisdom of that book will be incorporated in the book that I'm working on right now, the actual body of work that I want to present in a whole. Again, like, if you read the book and you put into practice what I've shared in there, because it's all validated and it's a lot of methodologies and practices, ancient practices that have been around for a long, long time and been validated by many human beings for their effectiveness and so on. You're going to have a life PhD, or be a PhD in your own life, right? You don't have to go to university to get this, because they're never going to teach you that in academia anyway. So point being, it's going to be mind-blowing, because it's going to answer all the questions you need. And obviously, at first, you will have to believe or take my words at face value, but I'll provide you with tools to validate them within yourself, so you know that what I'm presenting is not just a belief or an idea. It's something very valid and real.
Can you give you one example? Just one, to entice us a little bit.
Well,
Just one.
Once you've practiced a certain breathwork technique that elicits so much energy within your body, the chapter in the book will be just dedicated to energy and describes energy in very, 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 very detailed perspective on 2 points, on physical energy and metaphysical or astral energy, and how both of them use. But I'm going to give everybody a tool to go and verify it. Once you experience this within your body, you no longer have a question whether or not energy exists and these things are real. Like, it's so visceral. It's like somebody slapped you in the head, right? It just, your body's like overwhelmed with energy, and it's like you don't know what the fuck's going on. You lose control over your body. And with certain experimental things that you can put into practice, or another one that is very, very, this one is not an ancient science, but it just demonstrates something that is very interesting and important to understand about our wiring. And what I mean our wiring is our sense wiring and how we perceive and experience the world. Our senses are wired and operate on a very simple principle of contrast. They always compare what is now to the previous point of register of what they registered. So what I'm saying here is a very simple example or experiment you can perform at home right now without having to practice anything that might make you feel uncomfortable, right? Take 3 buckets of water, or three bowls of water, right? One of them filled with cold water, the other one filled with warm water or hot water, and the one filled with room temperature water. And what I want you to do to experiment and see how your mind's gonna go fucking crazy, what the fuck's going on here, is I want you to put one hand and keep it for a few minutes in the cold water, the other one in the hot water, and keep it there for a few minutes to kind of like for where those both hands normalize to that temperature. And then simultaneously, I want you to put them together in the middle bowl with the room temperature water to see what you're going to experience in your head, how you're going to feel. It's going to be really hard to make sense of things at first.
Really? Wow. I'm curious. I want to know what happens now. That's interesting. You just mentioned that. So first of all, your book's name is very catchy. Life PhD, right?
Yes.
Congratulations. I really like it. It's easy to remember. So would you say that has anyone ever graduated on this life? And how would you define like this graduation? Like, what is the defining thing that you can tell like someone graduated or not?
Well, there's what I'm going to say right now is going to sound like even more, let's put it this way, out there than perhaps Star Wars or any of these, Lord of the Ring movies or Harry Potter and stuff. But if somebody has graduated, what they can do is what Jesus or Jesus Christ has been reported to be able to do, to resurrect. And what I mean by this is not just to resurrect to be born again, but to dissolve their body at will, their physical body, and manifest it again. If somebody has those capabilities, they're a graduate. Meaning that they have the ability to move on to higher dimensions. And there have been many of those souls here on this planet. It just, again, our society is not designed to talk about them or seek their wisdom and insight. Our society is looking at what back in the day used to be called the miser, somebody who is greedy and love money, now as everybody should aspire to be, right? And it's a very dysfunctional society. We see where it's leading us, and nothing against making money. It's not, the problem is not how you make money or what I mean. Let me just clarify. Money is just a tool that we human beings have created, right?
So sorry, before we go into money, I just have a question about Jesus. Isn't Jesus the Son of God? So he wasn't a normal human, right? How?
This is a little bit of confusion there. I'm gonna give you the metaphysical translation of the allegories that were written by his disciples, or whoever the people were that wrote those books that are presenting facts, or at least symbolical and kind of like allegorical stories about his life and what it was about. Now, Jesus was a son of man, meaning he was born to a human mother as a human being is born, meaning that there was a father who impregnated his mother and he was born as a little baby. Now, Christ, or Jesus Christ, and when I say Jesus Christ, I'm focusing or exaggerating on the Christ point, is a degree of consciousness that every human being can attain. It's the degree of consciousness that is just beyond the absolute cosmic consciousness that is the birth and father or mother or whatever terms you want to use in your language, to that which gives birth to the whole universe. It's this Christ consciousness is like the middleman between matter and absolute spirit, between no manifestation and manifestation. Because if you're just any intelligent person can see this for themselves. I'm not going to present some great groundbreaking ideas here. But as you can, take a look at a photograph from some spiral galaxy in the universe. Go online and look at NASA or one of these great photos that they have from a spiral galaxy. You're going to see that there is an intelligent design in this. This is not a random fucking thing that just happened sporadically in this chaotic environment and all of a sudden turned out so beautifully, so well organized, and kind of like what we take for granted here day to day. Why is it that the moon doesn't decide to kind of like one day take the day off and go and spend time with Mars and come back here? And everything circles in this very beautifully organized way. How is it that the moon happens to be in the exact location and space and so on between the sun and our planet that at some time as recently they can be a full solar eclipse, right? These are not random things. There is just this, what I'm saying is this Christ consciousness, a degree of consciousness that Jesus had reached and attained because he was a practitioner of ancient spiritual advanced practices, allowed him the ability to have influence of how energy that manifests into matter works. Basically, he could choose to leave and come back at any point in time. He was what spiritual masters refer as to liberated, meaning he was no longer under. Now, this is another very heavy topic in the sense of like it'll take some moment, time for me to expand upon, but he was no longer under the subject to the law of cause and effect. So he was free of his past karma. And again, this is a very, like, my book goes into details about explaining all these fundamental laws. They're as fundamental as the physical laws or the laws of physics, but they function on the spiritual plane or the planes that we cannot measure, but are the planes that give birth to what is present and, or at least Simpsons is presented to our senses. Point being, Jesus was a highly advanced spiritual practitioner. And he reached the state that everybody, me, you, and doesn't matter. No, there's no, he didn't have a pass or, well, the word on, the word is skipping my mind right now. He wasn't the only person on the planet who ever or will ever attain this degree. He wasn't a special person. The only thing special about him was the things he practiced and the things he pursued in his life. He was very different in approach to what he knew was to be meaningful and worthwhile to pursue versus what, let's say, even today our society tells us is and dabbles with. In other words, he had no monopoly on God, right? He's not a very, like, in a sense, like every human being has this ability within them. And part of what my book is all about is to inspire you and provide you with at least the initial tools for you to build the foundation so you can aspire to become the Jesus in your neighborhood or whatever the analogy of that would be. There have been many saints throughout human history that have attained the same degree of spiritual elevation, so to speak, or graduated and can come and leave as they wish. And they've been entrusted because they've demonstrated through their thoughts, feelings, actions, and words that they are worthy of higher responsibilities, meaning that they can take on higher power and use it in positive, harmonious ways, right? To bring greater harmony, not to harm, because they're not functioning from a place of scarcity or selfishness, like what's in it for me, so to speak, like give me more, right? They're functioning from a place of elevating everybody, helping everybody, loving, being kind, being of service.
Mm-hmm. have so when I ask you what defines reaching this level, you mentioned resurrection. That's one thing, one of the elements that proves that you have achieved this level. But it's only prove you can only prove it after you die, then, because you need to in order to resurrect, you need to die. So how can you prove it before die? that
Well,
you
here's the thing. I understand what from where you coming from, and
Yeah,
here's the thing. The reality is such that if you ever been in the presence of a really advanced soul that has those capabilities, they don't do these things. They're not there to demonstrate like some magician. This is not an entertainment show.
I
They
see.
have nothing to prove to anybody, right?
Got it. Who?
However, what they can demonstrate is what I said earlier. They can get in a state where they can stop breathing and stop their heartbeat
Yes.
and look like they're dead for minutes and hours at a time, and all of a sudden come back and be totally normal like me and you are right now, to be as animated as we are. That's something that they're extremely capable of, and that's the way they can demonstrate it without having to necessarily die, but so to speak, they still die because if you don't breathe for an hour,
Oh,
disconnect.
sorry, the connection is bad. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I hear you. Yes.
All right. So you're saying if you don't breathe for an hour?
Well, if you don't breathe for 5 minutes, most people are gonna pass out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the very fact that you can go into a breathless state without any breath, and I like 100%, 100% breathless state, and without a heartbeat, and you can still come, so to speak, come back. Then obviously, you in many ways, are mini resurrection, so to speak, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
let your body decay.
Well, Martin, you speak with so much confidence. I need to ask you: have you ever managed to do that?
Well, not yet. I'm a saint in training.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Walking the path, my friend. Walking the path.
It's extremely interesting. Is there any other approach? So, as I learned a new words today, polymath. I didn't know it before. You're a man who's take on many responsibilities. So you have your book. Is there anything else that you are working on right now that you could share with us?
Well, this product that I'm working that I'm happy to share about. It's not something that I'm promoting actively or so on, but it's written on my shirt. It's called Flowmighty. It's a essential oils product that I designed particularly to help everybody who is performing on stage in some shape or form or presenting in front of people and struggles with stage fright or fear of public speaking and want to be extremely capable as a speaker and a presenter and a communicator. So, what I love to say is to tell well and excel. So, if that's something that you struggle with or you would like a way to enhance your presence on stage and ability to communicate and function when you're in front of a great audience, you can go to flowmighty.com and educate yourself about the product and get yours and start using it.
Great. Is this just for men as well, or also for women?
No, this is for everybody. The book
Okay.
is written from the perspective of men, just because, again, because I can only speak from experience. I don't speak because I've read books and this and that. I always speak, write about, and teach about is things that I've verified for myself. And I only have this male body. And as I shared with you, right, I cannot manifest yet in another, let's say, female body and spend time in it to derive conclusions and results from that perspective. So hence why it's just tailored or designed for men, because I can only say how things are from the
Yeah.
male perspective.
Makes absolutely totally sense. So that's great. Thanks for doing that. Also, because I remember I'm also a game developer, right? I also develop games. And I was invited by a university in Brazil a few years ago to give a talk about art and development in general, and I never talked in front of an audience before. I was so afraid. Like, how do I do that? And my friends like, just imagine everyone naked. Of course, they always say, it doesn't work, guys. It doesn't work. I hope that's not one of your tips.
No, hell no. I never like. This is actually a very
Yeah.
poor tip. I don't think it ever worked for anybody. Yeah.
Thanks God, I met a good friend. We worked together at the time, and she was like a reporter. She used to work as a reporter, and she really helped me. We trained a lot, so it was public speaking is a skill, and you need to learn it. And I'm glad that you're helping people with that. So that's great to hear.
Yeah. No, being able to communicate your ideas, especially if you have great ideas, obviously,
Yeah.
it's fundamentally valuable skill to have. And I mean, throughout human history, communication, and especially being able to communicate wonderful ideas in front of audiences have been well, the most powerful thing that we've ever done, right? Sharing these ideas and either creating movements, whether it was the civil rights movement or other movements and so on and so on. But a great speech can elevate and propel a lot of people, and even kind of fuel them to do the wrong things. Hitler is a great example. He was an
Great
absolutely
example.
no. Well, I mean, he's a great example of somebody who used oratory skills to ignite people to do very bad things. But point being, it's a great tool. What you're gonna use it to, what end results you're gonna apply this to, has to do with where you are in your mind and in your heart, or like to what degree, again, you've progressed in art school.
Well, um, I would have picked a different example, but yes, I agree with you. um, all right, Martin. So we're gonna cut short a little bit today because of the internet issues. I must apologize. But is there anything else that you'd like to say? Any final remarks?
Well, I would love to offer a short story to everybody
Of
that
course.
I'm gonna give you a little bit more inspiration. Let's put it this way. So, once upon a time in the savannah in Africa, there lived a very, very powerful, strong, big female independent lioness that was scouring the grounds and just very late in a pregnancy. So it had a very big belly, and she was slowly moving because she haven't had a successful hunt in a while. So she was kind of starving and tired and heavy, and just give it all that she got to find her next meal and basically survive. And she was hiding some around some very big bushes and have tall grasses when a flock of sheep came by, and she got so excited. Wow, today's my lucky day. I'm gonna actually get my meal. So she focused and concentrated, and nearby was a little young sheep. So she gave a huge jump and grabbed the little sheep and ran away and hid somewhere to enjoy her meal. However, in this whole moment of great exertion and concentration, you notice that she gave birth to a little lion that was left behind at the very place where she jumped from. So they just never went back to look for it because they didn't even realize what happened. Right? So many years ago, the shepherds in this area had noticed that there was a great big lion with a big mane, a male lion, hanging out with the sheep, and it pretended to be a sheep because it acted like a sheep. It was bleh, bleh, will be very scared and skittish and kind of like functioning in a very sheepish way. So one day, another great male lion, very strong and courageous lion, stumbled upon this fascinating flock of sheep, and was stupefied. He was like, "What the fuck's going on here?" And my eyes kind of like making things up. What is this great big lion doing hanging out with the sheep? And it's not only is he hanging out with the sheep, he like acting like one as well. Like he thought he was the greatest con artist in the world because this lion was able to convince the sheep that he was one of them, so he can kind of hide around and perhaps eat him. So he was like just examining this for a few moments and trying to make sense of all that was happening. And then eventually he realized that this lion wasn't, a con artist. He wasn't trying to get some sheep. He thought it was, or acting completely and entirely as one. So he's like, what the fuck? I need to check this out from much closer. So he also just jumped and landed right next to the lion, and all the sheep just scattered and ran away. And this other lion was like, no, please don't hurt me. I'm just a sheep. I'm just a sheep. And he's like, this other lion smacked him on the face. Hey, fool, open your eyes. He pulled him, dragged him to a pool of water, and showed his face into the water and showed his face. And he told him, hey, look at this face. This face roars. So now roll with me all. Be awakened to the truth that is within you. This whole fucking society has sold you on this false idea that you're this mortal little human being and you are disempowered and suffering and you should leave and seek comfort. I inspire you, empower you, and pull you up to realize that there's a roaring lion within each and every one of you. And what society is selling you on is fucking bullshit. So go ahead and wake up that lion within you. That's what I leave you with.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Beautiful. I would like to comment. I would like to keep talking with you for another 2 hours, Martin. It has been a pleasure. Let's end here. All right.
It was an absolute privilege to be your guest, Bru. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Unceasing blessings to you all. My heart is with you and my greatest wishes and goodwill.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much, everyone. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast will be recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the BruCast store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies, from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BruCast. Embrace the shock. Set the trend. Buy now at bru-cast.com/store. I repeat, bru-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. BruCast is also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where we upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BruCast on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links below. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. See you next time. Thank you very much, Martin. Bye-bye, everyone.